Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
ScreamingBox Technology and Business Rundown!
Welcome to the ScreamingBox Technology and Business Rundown podcast. I, Dave Erickson, and Botond Sedesh are your hosts for this month's exploration of technology and business. This month is our 10th anniversary of founding our digital development company, ScreamingBox. This podcast is usually something separate. I mean, we're not doing it with the expectation it's going to generate a lot of business for us, but it's because we really enjoy furthering the discussion on technology and business, which are subjects we are very passionate about, and making a contribution to the global knowledge base on the subjects that we cover. For this podcast, we wanted to celebrate our 10-year anniversary, not so much with a focus on talking about our company, but more on a focus about the state of technology in the development industry and how we think business is going to evolve over the next 10 years. To do this, Botond and I are joined by some of our fellow ScreamingBox team members who can add to the conversation from their perspective and their expertise. Balazs Bedagne, also known as Bedag, is one of the original co-founders of ScreamingBox and is a EE electronic engineer specializing in software, firmware, and hardware. David Levy is one of our own partners and owners of ScreamingBox, and he's a very experienced full-stack developer and an advanced technologist. And Marian Farkas is a seasoned HR expert who handles our recruiting and developer relationships at ScreamingBox. And Annie Pesnek is an experienced project manager and is one of the best PMs here at ScreamingBox. So, to start off, is there anyone who has something they want to kind of ask a question about?
Yeah, let's start with the fact that how did ScreamingBox start?
Well, it started when four of us kind of got together and we were looking to do development. I had found some needs in it, and we decided, okay, we knew developers throughout the world, so let's see what we can do to improve the way development is done. We all had experiences with working with development companies and developers, and we kind of wanted something a little bit better. And so that's how we started ScreamingBox.
Dave, when I'm talking to candidates, I often get the question how we got the company name, because it's a rather unique one. Can you share something about this?
When we started, I kind of was the one everyone volunteered to do the marketing, and my philosophy on that was we wanted something that stood out. And there were a whole bunch of development companies, with names like ExpertSoft and GreatSoft and FastSoft, and they were all kind of these boring corporate development names, and I wanted something that stood out. I also needed something that was a good, website or URL, and I was in the gaming industry for, 15 years, and early on in that, we did a business proposal to build gaming computers, and I reserved the website or the URL ScreamingBox. And after that business plan didn't go through and it didn't work out. We still did gaming, but we didn't do that store of selling gaming computers. So I had this URL left, and we went through a bunch of names, and I'm like, this is really a name that stands out, and we already have the URL. So coincidence and everything kind of came together, and that's how we did it. And I've had several clients throughout the years who have said that one of the reasons they really looked at us was from our name. They just thought our name was interesting and it was something that they wanted to be involved in. So it really does kind of stand out, and obviously it makes for a great podcast name as well. So it all kind of came together.
I think it was a good choice.
I do too.
So, Bereg, your area within the company is quite specific as you are dealing with embedded technologies. Why do you think that it makes sense to have embedded skills in a company which mostly does web and mobile development projects?
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. So the reality is that you cannot solve every problem with apps or websites or databases. So sometimes you need additional devices. Sometimes you need sensors, wearables, IoT devices to collect your data. So you still need the web or mobile app to show the data. But the infrastructure is more than that. And we already had some projects where we needed to prepare our software to communicate with embedded devices. More than that, we had a few embedded projects as well. And I like to have a variety in ScreamingBox where we can mix those skills together. And there are many development companies out there, and one of our way to differentiate could be the embedded skills. So I hope we can close more deals with mixed technology.
Yeah, I'm going to add a little bit to that. My background is contract electronics manufacturing. And even in the gaming industry, I was licensing our gaming brand to large manufacturers in Asia. So between Bedeg and I, we actually have a lot of hardware experience. And so, yeah, we've gotten some good hardware projects, and we'll see what happens in the future.
That's some interesting points you bring up, guys. But something pops into my mind, like we recently did an episode on the global supply shortage of semiconductors. So it makes me wonder, like, how does it make sense to start embedded projects while we are in a global supply shortage?
Oh, yeah. The short answer is to prepare for the end of the global shortage. So just imagine what would happen without preparation. So if you would start your development at the same time when the global supply chain finally starts working, you would need a significant time to produce anything. So your competitors would pass on you. So I know it is hard to pick a different processor or a different power supply chip every time you produce some prototypes. It makes mass production almost impossible. But if you know that already, you can plan ahead. You can make the embedded firmware flexible enough. You can test the data exchange between your hardware and backend, and you can validate your project. So in general, it is still possible to develop good prototypes during the global shortage.
So to expand upon that a bit, obviously we want to prepare for the end of the shortage. That's a great thing to do. What I'm wondering about is, did this shortage affect the lithographies that you regularly use in projects? So we know that I think there is a push on something nanometer, but we have plans for at least 8 previous generations. So is there any effect of maybe using older nodes more often these days, or anything like that?
Yeah, fortunately, it does not have a huge impact on us. So in embedded technology, we use old technologies. So we are not in the industry which needs the highest transistor density. So it's not a problem at all.
Yeah, a lot of the surrounding circuits, you may have the latest and greatest processor, which is hard to get because it's new or whatever, but all the surrounding circuits are probably going to use really older technology, not so much because of the technology, but from the cost. The older technology is just much more cost effective, and a lot of the surrounding circuits don't need that latest technology. They can use an older technology to support the newer technology.
Yeah, I still have lots of friends who still using 8-bit processors for their project, and it works really well in embedded.
And now that we learn about using the old technologies in the industry, so to say, let's go back to the future. What do you think like your dream project would be? And would you still use the old technologies for that?
Yeah, sometimes old technology is the best choice. In general, my dream project would be a mixed embedded mobile and web project. And the beauty of this type of project is that there is no need to involve separate development partners for the different technologies. No need to have endless calls between partners, defining the interface between the hardware company and the backend company. So we could solve all the problems in-house, and we could co-design the hardware to fit the user interface perfectly. And it would be so interesting to do that with a fully remote team. So it isn't only an IT challenge, but an HR challenge as well. But I guess Marian has more thoughts on this. So Marian, what are the challenges around having a fully remote team?
Well, just to point out first, I think all type of work have their own challenges, so it's natural that remote work also has its own challenges. I will only highlight a couple of those, and you can tell me how much it resonates with you or not, or if you would pick the same one. But I guess one of the most important challenges is in the area of effective collaboration and communication. So in case of remote companies, you can really make use of the superpowers of async communication. And of course, you are packed with a lot of technology, a lot of platforms. In most of the cases, you have the knowledge about these. But the challenge lies in making the right decision, which channels to use when you communicate your co-workers, and what is the most effective. So just to recall my own memories, or rely my own experience, when I joined ScreamingBox, it was my very first time being with a fully remote company. And before that, I was fully office-based. And I remember that we started working together with David on a lot of different topics, and the situation was like that. We were really busy, we had a lot of topics in common to work on, and in most of the cases we were even in different time zones. So that was the situation which we had to solve, and David started to re-socialize me with new platforms and new channels of communication, and I think I just really got accustomed to it. And I think this is one of the most of the challenges, to socialize your team members if they were not, or to improve the choices of the effective communication ways. I think this is one of the challenges. I don't know how it resonates with you. Another thing I would think about is probably the little bit of loneliness, which can sometimes happen at remote companies. So you have to be much more mindful how you socialize with your co-workers, how you communicate with them, because the ad hoc element is missing. It's not like you just drop in someone's office and you just pull someone aside to discuss your current topics, but you really have to plan ahead a little bit. David is nodding, so maybe you are with me in this topic. But definitely, the typical remote workers who we work with, they just enjoy the flexibility, the possibility for focused work, and normally they don't suffer from loneliness. But some other people have a higher need for socializing, and I think we really have to have a special attention for those people as well.
Yeah, I can I can relate, as you said. What do you deem important when dealing with the remote devs of us, or any team members? So what do you do in HR to help remote devs and team members in general?
We do a couple of things to help and foster the work of remote teams. So I really think that you have to have the foundations right. So, you won't have satisfied and contented co-workers, developers, if you are not having the hygiene factors set right. So basically, first of all, we try to build up the processes, the systems in a way that developers can always get the clear and direct information about the basic inquiries which they normally have, which are like info about their running project, info about next or upcoming projects, accounting or payment related type of questions. So I think this is one of the most important things, to get the basics right, and then you can build everything else on top. We pay special attention for, trying to document ourselves and trying to provide context. It's especially important when we are onboarding our new colleagues. And I think we can really be efficient with using some knowledge sharing platforms, just to try to maintain a little bit of human touch. We also include videos, greetings, tutorials, which are just small recorded videos, and try to create the feeling of inclusion for newcomers from the first moment.
And we can always turn to you with any questions. So.
Yes, actually, Annie, I think this is very important. So my philosophy is that even if you are a fully remote HR person, that it's absolutely important to be available, to be responsive, and just as I said, have the human touch, because my experience is that it always pays off. So you always receive the same attitude and behavior in return.
Yeah. So, David, I'm just curious, what were you doing 10 years ago?
That's a good question. I was graduating from high school. I was graduating from high school like 10 years ago. In the meantime, I was working with small business clients on WordPress projects. So I started some little website and WordPress development around the age of 14 or something. And when I was at the end of high school, I already had some pocket money out of these small projects, and it is interesting to see how the development world evolved since then. It feels like it was a decade ago.
Yeah. David, I know that you always have your eyes set on the technology trends and what is the hottest technology on the market. So looking back, what do you think? What is the technology that has had the biggest impact on development in the past 10 years, let's say?
Oh, we're gonna stick to the 10 years.
Oh yeah.
On the website side, probably moving to React.js and Angular first. That was the biggest step from the classic JavaScript world. It's 10 to 5-ish years ago, we still used Knockout.js and these pre-SPA like frameworks for JavaScript development. Then React and Angular came, and those were pretty huge changes compared to how you wrote web applications in general. So much more JavaScript got involved in the creation of just a simple website that nowadays, even for a static website, you almost necessary to use JavaScript at the point, some kind of JavaScript framework. ES6, ECMAScript 6, that was another huge change. It was in 2015. It was a huge, that was kind of how JavaScript matured. Before 2015, it was the same hard to use language. The only thing that made it easier was jQuery. Now jQuery looks like an obsolete thing from 30 something years ago, but in general it was the 2000s and early 2010s. But again in 2015 ECMAScript 6 came. ECMAScript 6 changed everything in the JavaScript world. So JavaScript became a fully mature usable language in itself with the ES6 changes, then Angular, React, that kind of changed the whole front end and in general web development work. and so many great companies and open source projects started building on that. Like for example, Next.js. That's my current favorite, and hundreds of thousands of other developers' favorite, because they just make website development as easy and as accessible as it can be. At this point, developing websites, you can develop much more complex websites compared to 5, 10, 15 or whatever years ago. In one hand, so much easier. I'm so excited because to set up a new complex dynamic website with dynamic stuff like user authentication, different user roles, dynamic data connecting to different APIs. It is at this point you can set up a whole SaaS company in over a weekend or something. It was never be possible earlier, and we never thought that it's going to be possible. But with so many great third-party APIs, with so many great open source projects, to set up a website that accepts new users, accepts payments, subscription payments, and you get something in return from the website, it is less than a couple of days of work. And on the web, I think this is much more exciting and interesting compared to the generic idea of Web3 and blockchain. Web3 and blockchain is going to be exciting. Both of them are going to be exciting in the next couple of years, probably. But at this point, I feel like Web3 is trying to solve a problem that didn't exist right now. It is kind of moving backwards. We have a solution, but for what, we don't know it yet. And they try to use Web3 and blockchain for everything. It's going to be the Uber of Web3, blockchain, AI, enter another random buzzword, and you get anything that's new, which is going to be cool eventually. We're going to find problems to solve with it, but currently it is much more important that with the third-party solutions, no-code tools, low-code tools, Next.js and similar companies, everyone has the option now to build MVPs, to validate ideas, to even build small SaaS that they can scale for hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue per year in days or just a couple of weeks. That is something really exciting.
And what about mobile? What do you see as interesting for mobile?
Ooh, it's a completely different topic. I feel like when I started developing for mobile, that was the years when we had to use Eclipse for Android development. I think it was like until 2014 or so. At that point, I did not develop to iOS. It started a little bit later, but still not with Swift, but Objective-C. And then, because I was using React, it made sense to try out React Native. Then I got up on the hype train and started using React Native in 2017. And it felt like it is going to be the way how to develop, how we're going to write mobile apps in the near future. It looked like that cross-platform is the way to go. There were some solutions before React Native. It was PhoneGap and Cordova, Ionic. Maybe PhoneGap and Cordova are the same. I don't even remember right now. But those solutions were hybrid mobile apps. When you only get a native app and a web view that only showed you a website. So it was a completely different thing. Then React Native and Xamarin completely changed the game. And React Native started to dominate the cross-platform scene. then Flutter came in a couple of years later and started hammering React Native in every single place where React Native had issues. Flutter was more stable. It was easier to develop. Flutter somehow felt more mature in less time than React Native. Flutter felt more nature in 2 years compared to the 5 years of React Native. But I do feel like it is we are 5 to 6 years in now to different cross-platform native solutions, more than 5 to 6 years. But I do feel like it is still the wild west of cross-platform stuff. I'm not sure about the future we're moving to. React Native goes on a complete, almost complete rewrite now, the full architecture and underlying stuff. Flutter feels like it is a lot more stable and a lot more usable for developers currently compared to React Native. And then the native platforms came out with their own cross-platform development languages. So for Android, there's Kotlin that could be able to do cross-platform. For iOS, there's Swift. It is an open source language that is kind of similar to either Kotlin or TypeScript. And there's Swift UI for iOS now. You can almost drag and drop a basic iOS app at this point. I do feel like for mobile apps, we either gonna go for a real long way to find the most efficient solution to work with, or the mobile devices are gonna be out of the trend before we find a way to write mobile code efficiently.
So, David, what do you see as kind of the future development trends? So 10 years from now, what do you think development will look like? Or maybe 5 years? What do you think is it going to be much different from where we're at now? Or what do you think it's going to be at?
Earlier, I always talked and people always said that AI is going to take over all of our jobs, especially jobs from developers who make the easier part of the development. So for those who only do front ends or only do pretty common business logics and pretty common applications and nothing really serious and specific. And it is undergoing right now. Not like we imagined. So it is not like at this point, it is not like you write a message to some AI chatbot that I need a website with green buttons and I want it to do great. I want it to pop and I want it to sell millions of dollars in a day. But with low code and no code tools, we're pretty close to it. At this point, using Baba or similar no code tools, it is like using Sketch. I think Sketch is the app where you can help beginner developers to learn to code by putting together puzzle-like code pieces one after another. So building an app with no code tools is like that. At this point, getting different images or copy. So if you want new images to your website, if you want a landing page copy, if you want blog articles or videos, you can ask different AIs. That is something we should really take seriously. We should really consider either using or developing them, because AI generated content and almost AI made easier, less complex business applications are a real thing now. And I think in 5 years, we'll be able to build even more complex stuff with low-code tools and AI-generated stuff. Again, I feel like traditional site builders or traditional website or front-end devs are more in a trouble at this point. But in 5 years, it might be a bigger trouble for more developers in more places. But it's so much better to clients. So like if we just decide to consult with a client and help them to use these tools to their advantage, at this point there's no need to spend $500,000 to build something that is not as unique, but that is just similar to other apps. There's no reason for that. Why would they spend $500,000 on that when they can spend like what, 50 to 100K and spend the rest on marketing?
I agree with you, David. I think that's where it's going to go in 5 years. And as a development agency, we obviously will have lots of developers who are there to help clients figure out what parts of the project that they can have input on and use the low-code tools for that, and then pass on whatever they've done to us so that we can do the stuff that you can't do through those tools. And I think that's going to make for a much better kind of client developer relationship in the end.
I have a little bit different opinion on AI. So,
Okay.
For example, 40 years ago, the biggest challenge was how to write a chess application which can beat a human world champion. And it is easier. It is a much easier problem. When it comes to replacing a developer with AI, it is more like human-like software. And it is always, we always need 15 more years. And it was the same in the 1960s, and it is the same today. So of course we can do some easy challenge. We can solve easy challenges with AI, but human-like thinking, it's a bit more hard, I think.
Right. I think the role of AI here is not to replace a developer and work like a traditional developer. The role of AI here, I think, is rather helping out a real developer. So instead of me having to write the same code for authentication as I wrote in the past 10 years, in every single year with little to no modifications, the role of AI is that I can completely outsource these routine tasks, and instead of spending another 40 hours on something I built for 40 hours a year ago, now I can just outsource it to an AI that already has a solution for that. So it's not like a real pair programming partner.
Yeah, I would like to have an AI which would be able to refresh my browser to the new version and resolve all the conflicts. So I don't want AI to write the code instead of me, but do the shitty part.
Yeah. Well, that's how you get an AI uprising. If you only give the worst jobs to AI.
Long live Skynet.
So what about you, Botond? What do you think, what are kind of development technologies that you find interesting right now?
Oh, well, that's an excellent segue from the topic that you just touched on earlier, David. And it is AI, but not in the ways that you or Berek think, really. I do use an IDE, which is a bit more expensive, but much heavier on the AI assistance. And I find it incredibly helpful that I practically never write variable names anymore, because it just knows like what I would name my variables. It just gives a name. It's fine every time. Now it also drops in code snippets, like I don't know, for each is files for stuff whenever it's needed. It also gives me recommendations that hey, maybe you don't want to use these functions, maybe you want to use these because these are better, newer, stuff like that. And what I'm really excited about is when we get to a point where it's not just the same static AI for everyone, but when it is a very shallow but very detailed copy of your own coding style. So everyone has their own style. I'm sure, David, you have yours, Greg, you have your own, I have mine. And it's natural that we want an assistant that can help us out to remind us of the best practices that we used. So, for example, if I could tag a solution, like this is the definitive way to process many entities, right? So whenever I do a piece of code that goes through a list of entities, then it just pops up like a little recommendation, like, hey, you used this before and marked it as your preferred solution. Would you like to apply it here? It doesn't even need to convert it, just like recommend that, like, hey, I know you want to use this, but maybe you forgot.
Yeah, I do use something similar. I do use GitHub's Copilot sometimes, not always. The main difference, what I've heard, is that GitHub Copilot doesn't use my code specially to give me recommendations, but rather everyone's publicly available code from GitHub. And over the time, it learns what are those code snippets, which is great to recommend because most people started to accept that and use that. I love that because it sometimes it just challenges my thoughts. I have an idea how to solve a problem, and GitHub Copilot just jumps in with a completely different one. Sometimes it's better, sometimes I'm the smarter one. But it's not going to be for so long.
Well, maybe we can talk to Jeff Bezos and he can do Alexa for developers. And if you're just coding, you just ask Alexa a question and it'll give you the code that you should use.
Yeah. So Annie, I feel like we do work really great together, and I feel like your ideas from project management made the company in itself better, not just the efficiency, but like client handling and every single place that touches project management. How you do this? What do you think that? What are the most important parts of managing projects?
Okay, so you already mentioned the client part and the development part. So I would say, like, for me, the most important one is communication and people management in general. And when we talk about people management within the scope of project management, I think we're always talking about like the developers and your own team, so to say, and the client's team. And you have to like communicate differently with them. So with your own team, like Botond already mentioned, like as a development style, everyone has their own style. Everyone has their own, especially in remote working and freelancing, our own timelines, our own like preferred way to work on things. And you have to like really know your people or the people on the project. And you have to like, as a project manager, of course, you have to like stay on the top of everything, have an overview, know what comes after what, where are the dependencies. And of course, what I experienced in the past, that sometimes like, okay, I'm the developer, I'm developing the code, and I'm developing my part, you're developing your part, and it's not meeting and communication wise. As of project management and like seeing the whole picture, the bigger picture, you have to like always know where to like come to what and where. And for people to like talk with people, to know with people, have to get updates from them. For example, some of my developers like to like send me an update or send me on the Slack a note. Another one prefers, okay, I will call you, tell you in 2 minutes. note it down please, and then I'm done and go back to coding. So you have to know the communication with the developers to like stay on the top of the project. And then comes the client management part, where you kind of have to like say everything, of course, to the client, do the reports for them, or do the status for them, or just like have a daily call with them. And especially for bad news, you have to like use a different kind of communication. So you can't just say to them, okay, this is not going, the whole staging environment is wrong. You have to like wisely choose your words to specialize it. Yeah, we have a kind of a bit of obstacle with the staging environment, but we're already working on that, and you will get. So you have to like always use a positive aspect by finishing off to them. So like the communication and the people management and knowing what everyone like requires personally is really important in it. Of course, like the basic project management, like hard skills, so to say, like know the methodologies, know your projects, know what would like benefit the best from it. So for example, for a lot of projects which is really complex, it's hard to use agile, which is like really trending now still, Scrum and Kanban. But like for a really complex project where, for example, there's a lot of backend side or like a whole backend rewrite in it, you can't use agile because there are, or just simply agile because there are so many dependencies that you can just like put a little part in it. So you have to like know how to execute, have to like mix the methodologies, for example, or have to monitor the progress that we're doing waterfall in the backend, but the front end wise we can do fully Scrum. There are like the little user stories which you can use. Here are the tasks, and we can like deliver constantly. Whereas in the backend side, it's possible that the client will not see, like, so to say, the next step for a few weeks because it's a whole backend rewrite, and they just don't see the violin in front end and UI. They can see the little thing. For example, okay, this, I don't know, bottom is red. And you have to like learn to have to communicate these things, have to like mix those things together so they always get something, so they always feel like, okay, it's going forward, the client is happy. And the team, as the client is happy, the team has like, so to say, the space and the safe environment to improvise, to innovate, to use their own style and own methods as the developers. So I would say, yeah, maybe these two things are the most important ones.
So Annie, what technologies are important for project management?
Okay, so for project management, the technologies are mainly on the hard skill part. So by planning, by executing a project, by organizing it. And what tool I use the more often, or like I think it's the most important to kind of use either Gantt charts or like any kind of roadmaps to like follow the project and visualize them, because it's easy to like show the clients and they just kind of have a deadline, kind of have like the little things, okay, what comes after what. So I would say like the Gantt chart is generally the top tool to use in either which of ones. For example, like Trello or like any Kanban board, we could use like ClickUp, we could use Heat, we could use something where we can like show visually the progress, where we are, what's in to do, what's in progress, okay, where are we blocked. For example, it's really important to say to like see where the project is blocked, where we like having a background currently. I would say for spreadsheet like features, I really like using Heat. That's one of my favorite ones, and there are really like good tools, for example, like Airtable or Rike, for like a safe or Scrum environment to see. And as of communication tools, of course, like Slack, Google Meets, Zoom, any kind of communication tools.
So Annie, how do you think that project management will change in the future? Like, what do you think is kind of the future vision of how project management will work, say 5 years, 10 years from now?
Okay, so David already mentioned the parts where AI comes in SM development, and I would say in project management there's gonna be like kind of the same shift happening. Like the machine learning, driven automation technologies will like improve a lot, and it will like spread over the thousands of tools we already have to follow up on the project. And I think a lot of like basic management stuff, so to say, will be automated because like a robot can do that. For example, which I'm thinking of right now, is like Google Meet. When you record a meeting on Google Meet, it's already like do the transcription if you turn it off. So it can automatically, right now only in English, but it automatically puts the transcriptions for the recording. And I'm thinking like it's just the baby steps away for basically writing a meeting note for you right after the project to like have the code words, so to say, and just like put the meeting notes in it. And I'm thinking a lot of management tasks will be done by this. For example, like using reminders, using meeting notes, using any project management tools to follow up thing. I think it will be like even more automated than it is now.
Yeah, I think the most important part I see of project management is that communication with the project owner and the team. And I don't know how much automation will help in that. I think the automation will help project managers have the information they need, but the project managers are always going to have to figure out how to communicate things to the product owner so that they understand it, know what's important and what they need to focus on. I think AI will have a hard time doing that, but I'm sure it will come
I
up
hope
with
so.
tools. Yeah. All right.
I would really love to see an AI which would flag a situation, the exact day when the project can go south. And it would be
Yeah.
very easy to uh, train the AI for that because more than half of the IT projects are not finishing really well.
Yeah. Or just like showing the alternatives. If I don't know, something isn't delayed, then this will happen with the other part of it. I think AI can do that. Hopefully it can do the communication part.
How how would you describe your a day of project management?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Well, it always depends. But I would say in the morning you always like have to as we're working on different time zones. It's often like I wake up in Hungary, and for example, I have like five emails already from Australia from one of our clients. And so each day, which is fixed for me, is to like go over them, to like go over what happened the time in the other time zone where I was sleeping peacefully, and it's like just happened. So the first time for me is always like that. Then get a status from the developers. Sometimes when we have daily stand-ups, that's always in the mornings. So that's 2 or 3 times a week, depending on which projects we're working on currently. So that's kind of fixed. Like after a stand-up, I always have to like write the meeting notes to like flag the questions, to like get back on the client. Okay, we need this from you. Get on the developers. Okay, you promised this to the client yesterday. Are we still on track? Is this still happening? Did something happen within the last hours that will just like change the things that I have to communicate for the client? So like then comes the administrative part of it. And like as I said, with the time zones, like everyone's working on their own time zone, own method, on everything. So it's always like, okay, I finished my task, and then someone pings me with something, which is like absolutely another project. But I would say like the normal Hungarian 9 to 5 is mostly filled with the administrative tasks, to follow up the things, to create the user stories, to like maybe watch some recordings, to like go over the user stories, go over the requirements, go over the changes, talk with the developers to see if we're still on track or not on track. And at the end of my day, there comes the American time zone in, and there are the meetings again.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that sounds
So
like a
it's
lot of
full day
meetings.
of communication, basically.
It's nice. That's really nice for people who enjoy just having meetings all day. Well, Dave, if you won't mind, may I ask how do you think the development industry is going to change in the future? And I'm going to throw you a curveball here. Not in like the next 10 years, but in like 100 years.
Oh.
Well, if okay, in 100 years, you'll put on a headset and it'll read your brainwaves,
Oh
and
yeah.
it'll see kind of the product vision that you have, in your head, and then it'll feed all that to an AI who will interrogate you and ask you a bunch of questions, and then it'll go off and write the product and make it work and test it, and then there'll be a finished product, and you can go through and verify that it was built the way you wanted to. So if I had to say what will happen in 100 years, that's what I'm thinking, right? Because if you think about it, 120 years ago, we didn't fly and we didn't drive cars. And that was 120 years. So 100 years from now, why not, right?
All true.
And as far as in more of our lifetimes and in the near future, I think development's going to change, because I think the emphasis of development will no longer be focused so much on the tech stack and the code. I think it's really going to be focused on how does the technology solve business problems. Like, for us, our best clients are the clients where they come to us and say, well, I think I need to update my website. And after we have a conversation with them, it becomes clear they have a bunch of business challenges. And what they're really looking for is solutions to these business challenges that come from technology, whether it's automating manual processes, automating their workflows, making it so their workflows integrate into their website or their e-commerce or their back-end, things that make solutions for businesses. I think that's really the focus. And that's kind of what we've focused on, right? And yes, we have to focus on the tech stack and the code. And sometimes we get clients who come to us and say, hey, I want to build this tech stack. We're already building it. We just need developers. We need you guys to handle this tech stack. But our best clients are ones who come to us and say, look, I know I need something. I don't quite know what I need, but I need a solution. These are the problems that I'm having. And then we figure out how to use technology to solve those problems. And I think that the focus in the next 5 to 10 years, that's going to become more of the focus. Not so much how do I make my website pretty, but how do I solve this business challenge? How do I get more business? How do I handle the business that I already have? How do I, make it more cost effective? How do I become more profitable? Those are really where the focus of development is going to kind of shift to. I'm already seeing that in the conversations I have with potential clients, that they're really looking for solutions to business problems, and development just happens to offer those solutions, right? But part of those solutions are project management, like Annie, and part of those solutions are quality and UX and who are the right people, or a business analyst, or doing a lot of exploration about what the market needs, or marketing solutions, right? So I think the future of development in 10 years is that the clients are going to go through a business process versus a development process. Well, I want to thank everybody who's been on the podcast, and again, happy 10th anniversary, and may we have another 10. And to our listeners, next month, we'll have another interesting podcast. Thank you.
Thank you very much for taking this journey with us. Join us for our next exciting exploration of technology and business in the first week of every month. Please help us by subscribing, liking, and following us on whichever platform you're listening to or watching us on. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and please let us know any subjects or topics you would like us to discuss in our next podcast by leaving a message for us in the comment sections or sending us a Twitter DM. Till next month, please stay happy and healthy.